So in this episode, I want to share one of my favourite mugs, first of all, which is my Moomin mug. And it's yellow with Moomin on the front, and Moomin's got a treasure chest. And I love this mug because it just reminds me that inside the box there's always treasure. That's a mindset thing. But I like to think of it as being anything that you have in front of you, there is always some treasure to be found. And I think for women in midlife, there's so much like shitty bit that we were never told growing up. Like nobody told us about the menopause. I mean, I didn't know anything about it. Thank goodness for Davina McCall and her program, however many years ago it was, who just like literally let rip on everything. There's so much negativity around hitting menopause and perimenopause. You know, the fact that we're tired, the fact that our hormones are going all over the shop, the fact that we feel like we're losing our identity and we're sort of slipping into this invisible self, that society sees us differently and everybody's having, you know, enhancements done to their bodies so that they don't feel like they're being left behind. The fact that you've got more hair on your chin than you do on your legs. I mean, the list goes on, right? However, there is some really brilliant stuff about hitting midlife. And this is what I choose to see in my box of treasures as I am running my way through perimenopause and all the joys it brings. I do remind myself, and therefore also obviously my clients, that midlife brings us so many opportunities. So we can look at midlife with a different viewpoint of thinking we know more about ourselves and we are more experienced than we have ever been in our entire lives. And that has to be a fact, right? Because we're older than we were like a minute ago. So we know more. We know more about ourselves. We know more about what we will and won't tolerate. Hello. That means, you know, we can now put in boundaries that work for us. It means that we can recognize what relationships, in all sorts of relationships, so it could be at work, it could be friendships, it could be family members, it could be, you know, partners, what relationships work for us, why that might be, and what we might want to sort of leave behind. We're in a much, much, much better position now than we've ever been to be able to pivot. We're not at the end of our lives. It's midlife. The clue's in the title, right? So we've got all of this time ahead of us. And that's really exciting if we choose to see it like that. We haven't been thrown off the freaking conveyor belt. We are jumping into the next chapter with both feet as the brilliant, capable, not giving a shit, less embarrassed, no shame, less fucks given, brilliant woman that you are. And that I am. That's how I choose to believe it. That's how I choose to see it. So you can be less reactive when you get older. You recognise that everything is a moment in time, that life is more complicated than we thought it would be when we were 20. And so we can give ourselves some grace for going, do you know, I handled that in the way that I could at the time with the tools I had. Would I do it differently today? Yeah, possibly. But that's because I know more than I did then. So you cut yourself some slack. You can be kinder to yourself. You're not waiting to be validated by everybody else. You're not trying to keep up with the Joneses and feel like you have to be somebody so you're not rejected. Like, I don't subscribe to that. If you don't like it, it's okay. I'm really not that bothered. And that doesn't mean I don't care. It just means I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with me. And that's all I have to be okay with. I'm okay with me, and everything else will come and go. And that's how it works. So midlife, I've worked with many women who have felt this sense of like, is this it? Like, if I reach this bit where everything just feels a bit discombobulating and a bit dry on many levels, it's just like, is this it? And I feel like, no, it's not it. This is your opportunity to use everything that you've learned and experienced beforehand to curate your next chapter. Like, what is it that brings you joy, that makes you feel fulfilled, that gives you purpose, that creates a positive impact, that also pays the bills, that also gives you space to breathe? And it's all sounding like a, Christmas wish list. But it's possible. It really is possible. And I've seen the proof is in the pudding. One, I'm living that myself. And I encourage my clients, if they too want to, how are we going to make that happen in a realistic way? You know, you can't necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater, sell the kids and burn the house down. And you don't need to. You know, you can make really small, specific changes in a really manageable way to have a ripple effect on how you structure your next chapter. And if there's something that you've been really burning to want to do, you know, you've travel somewhere or try a job in something or upskill in something, learn how to do something, do it. Because there's no point in saving it. Like, what are you saving it for? Somebody else? Or for when you miraculously know how to do the thing that you hadn't taken the time to learn? No, now is the time. Now is the time to recognize that, yeah, you're not going to be brilliant at it straight away, perhaps, but maybe you might be. And maybe that's not what it's about. Maybe it's about the experiencing things and enjoying things and learning and sharing and creating more than it is about achieving and striving and adhering to society's expectations that we kind of have perhaps been conditioned to have through our teens, 20s, 30s, 40s. That's how I like to see midlife. And certainly softens the 3 a.m. wake-ups. But also the clients who I've worked with, they've been people who get to late 40s and they're thinking, I've got something else in me. There's something, like they say, there's always a book. Everyone's got a book inside them. I definitely want to write a book at some point. But there's something about you, like there's more to give. It's a long time being alive and not doing stuff that you enjoy, that fills your cup, that makes you genuinely feel alive and fulfilled. Like, what's the point otherwise? You're just sort of passing through. That's a long time to just be passing through, rubbing along, like going through your day to day, doing stuff that you don't particularly enjoy, filling your empty space with stuff that is just stuff, being busy for busy's sake. That doesn't have to be the case. And you don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to be aggressive or dismissive or any of those sort of negative responses. It's about stepping into, what do I want from my next chapter? What do I want for myself, for my environment, for the people who I love and care about, for the community, for the wider world? Well, how do I want to show up for myself for my next chapter? Now I know that I am more capable, more experienced, more self-assured than I've ever been. And what does that look like for me? And that's really exciting. So I've had somebody who I work with who, I mean, she was just a brilliant artist and she wanted to create her art. But it was like, oh, is it really going to come off? And, you know, is it just another thing? Is it? So we worked through it. And she's now selling her art. And I bought a lovely piece that when I'm in my office is hanging in my office. And I commissioned her to make that. And I'm doing this. Like, I've always wanted to do a podcast. I haven't done one. It's something that I wanted to do. So you just do it, right? You don't wait for the perfect time. You create the time. The time is always there to be had, because when there's something absolutely critical where you need to stop what you're doing and be there, miraculously you have that time. So when people say, I just don't have the time, I know we all have different levels of commitments and expectations of where we need to be and how we need to show up, and that's different for everybody. But I can almost, dare I say, guarantee that there are windows, pockets of time that you are filling with things that you do not need to get your nose stuck into. So if you're holding back in midlife from doing something you're really keen and passionate and kind of got that, yeah, I want to do this, if only I had the time, then I would encourage you to think about what is it that you're filling your time doing that is so critical. And if, and this is a hypothetical, if you got a phone call that you needed to be at the bedside of your most loved person and you had to stop everything you were doing, you'd be able to do it. And all of those things that you've considered right now to be so important that you don't have time to stop doing, they would be all right without you. Ultimately, we are not as important as we think we are. So sad. Our parents lied from such a young age. We're not that brilliant and we're not that important. The world still keeps doing its thing, whether we're involved or not. How involved you are in other things that you don't want to be doing is ultimately your choice. Now, I know peripherally there are other things that we have to do or we are subscribed to doing. So it's not as black and white as that, but essentially it kind of is as well. So if you're finding in midlife, you're like, yeah, do you know what? I really want to learn to sing. I really want to do more of X, Y, and Z. I want to travel. I want to go and sell the house and go around in a van. What's stopping you? Because nothing is forever. And just even if you did do that, you don't have to stay in the van until the end of your days. You could do something for a period of time. And there are loads of countries where having one career and sticking with it for the entirety of your working life, that's just not a thing. It's like almost expected that, of course, you're not going to want to have a job for life. And let's face it, jobs for life aren't really there anyway. So you're okay to change it up. And I really encourage everyone and anyone and myself regularly to take that leap of faith of just going, I'm all right with the fallout. If this doesn't work out, at least I tried it. Like, it doesn't really matter. As long as you can pay the bills, you can feed the family, you can, you've got the basics covered. The rest of it, it's just shits and giggles, right? So midlife is, I feel, yes, there are the difficulties, and I can cover those, in depth as well. And you may well be experiencing those yourself, and if not, you may have already experienced, and if not, then they're to come. And they take all different shapes and sizes, right? It's not one size fits all. But there is also the other side, and this applies to all of us. We've got 100% success rate of managing life because we're still here. You're listening, watching this. I'm speaking to you now. So to date, right now, I have 100% success rate. That's good enough for me to say I'm all right with taking a risk of trying something new, for doing something different, for spending time in a way that works for me in this next chapter. And it can be really exciting when you see other people who are taking that risk, or they're saying, I'm going to try this thing. And often when we respond to them, or other people may respond to you, if they're cautious or they're a bit resistant to you making this change, big or small, it's often not about you doing it. It's about a reflection of how they feel if they were to do it themselves. So they're, oh, God, I don't think I'd sell up the house and, get a van. Well, that's okay, because you're not the one selling the house and moving into a van. Me personally, I don't want to be doing that. But if you want to do it, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. I might ask you some questions as to how you come to that decision, because that's exciting. It's interesting. But I'm not going to reflect my thoughts and my considerations and ideas onto your dreams and aspirations. Equally, the idea is that we don't do that back and forth, right? But the thing that can keep us stuck from trying new things and seeing things as an adventure and as an opportunity is, one, we listen to other people's advice and thoughts and what they think that they would or wouldn't do, or we tap into the worrying, the what ifs, the what if it all goes wrong? What if it doesn't work out? What if? Let's just stay safe. Let's stay with the status quo. Who am I to do this anyway? All of that stuff. And one of the things I wanted to read out is I printed off one of my blog posts, and I haven't read this, so we'll see how this comes out. But it's called The Worrier. And I'm not somebody who naturally worries about things, but I recognise that as I've hit perimenopause and the hormones have changed, there is a more of an anxious feeling which can rise up inside me, which I'm totally not used to. And I've really noticed that. And I know that's a massive side effect for a lot of women going through perimenopause and menopause. And maybe that resonates with you. And I want to just reflect on something that I'd written whilst I was blogging and vlogging after the first brain tumour diagnosis. And I'm not sure when I'd written this. But there's a photo of me. So it must have been after the operation. So this will be after the operation, maybe September 2019. And I want to just read this out, having not read it, to see how I felt then when I was 41 about worrying. Because at the time, I really felt like I was walking my talk and stuff that I had coached women on for the last 15, 20 years beforehand as to how they could manage their emotions in a way that worked for them. And worrying, whether you're in midlife or not, is something that many people struggle with. And it can be really debilitating. And I think also then in midlife, it's like there's so many other facets as well that worrying can stop you from doing anything. So I was kind of curious just to see whether what I had written then is something that I would stand by now. So let me put my specs on. The Deirdre Barlows. Right. The worrier. I don't consider myself to be someone who worries about stuff usually. I actually make a conscious decision not to worry. Being straightforward in the way I speak definitely helps. My curiosity to confront things and uncover what lies in the murky corners helps me not to catastrophize about stuff. I know people who do worry, and they worry a lot. They worry about everything. And I can see how crippling and paralysing it can be, exhausting and futile. But for the most part, we can find ourselves worrying unnecessarily about all kinds of things that are wildly unlikely to happen and of which we have no control over. And I've worked with clients who are worriers. Once the worry's established, we put together a "and so what" plan, their very own mini map, which basically gives their worry a freedom pathway to follow. This rapidly reduces the fear of the unknown and takes the sting out of the tail. Often the worrier keeps us down when we're feeling out of our depth, lost in translation or frightened. And ultimately, its job is to keep us safe from getting hurt or hurting others, but it goes about the wrong way, I think. So I'd rather welcome in the sense of perspective. She feeds your soul, integrity, and fuels the belief in your own intuition. Inviting in the sense of perspective to the warmth of the kitchen table gives your worries a root of their very own to do one. Au revoir, pal. So long, fuckface. I found the best way to deal with the worrier is head on. Shine the light bright. What actually is the problem here? What is the real fear? And how much control do I have over this, if any? And if you can make a change to create a plan. Acknowledge it. Where is it showing up in your body? Because our bodies feel it first before our brains tell us that we're worried. So your tightness in your chest, short breath, headaches. And then recognise it's just fear trying to keep us safe. Say thank you. Thank you kindly for your efforts. But let it know that it can step down for now. And then actively choose to let it go. It's not in your remit. Not for today. By giving our worrying scenarios a root of their own, you may well find a whole lot of them start to lose their strength and drift away. That sounds simple, and it can be, if you want it to be, and you have a method that works. But you have to want to not worry. Worrying can be like gossiping. Worrying can be juicy. We want to help people who are worried. Worries can make good stories which need to be fed. Being worried can help us to feel like we care more, or we're more engaged in something we feel we ought to be. We're told it's good to be worried and it's natural to worry. It shows that we care if we're worried. There have been times where I've been concerned, of course, talking about going through my operation. It would be odd and felt as though I was denying myself a true understanding of the severity of what was going on if I hadn't been shocked, unnerved and unsure. But generally, it's been low level and manageable, way more than expected by me and everyone else. I decided to make this a challenge to see how I could handle hard stuff, game-changing events. Not as a contest. We don't want winners and losers. And throughout this adventure, I've confronted more corners of my mind than I knew existed. Some worries I legitimised by taking action, writing letters to my family in the event of an accident or death, in theatre, for example. Not an easy thing to do, but it was a pathway that took the fear away. As I don't believe in jinxing things, it was merely confronting something rather than letting it fester as fear, of which I had no control over. So ding dong, the warrior knocked on my door and I just chatted on the doorstep. I wasn't inviting it in, not for now. So now was not the time to airlift myself to a place of worrying about stuff I had no knowledge or control of. Now was the perfect time to see if the stuff that I talked about and wholly believe stands up to the true test when the shit hits the mega fan. Could I really practice what I preach? Yes I could. Avec bells. Phewie. And bizarrely, and in a measured and accepting way, I found that by actively choosing to confront real concerns I've had, I've created a pathway for what I could affect. I gave myself so much mental space and freedom to be positive, pragmatic and calm. If you're a worrier, ask yourself how much of a thrill you enjoy the worry. How would you feel if you let it go as mental energy and focus on something else? And then just start to liberate yourself and those around you. You're welcome. And I guess what that shows me is at that time, 41 was that midlife. It's a bit early, isn't it? But I was going through a really difficult time. There was loads of stuff mentally, physically, emotionally going on. And I chose not to overcomplicate it by catastrophizing and worrying about what I didn't know was or wasn't going to happen. And now in midlife, 48, nearly, I apply that same kind of rule of thumb, is that what I can and can't control is up to me. The stuff I can't control, I don't need to fuel that as fear by not trying something. And now I know more than I knew then, because I've been through so much more. I mean, writing that, I had no idea that I was going to be divorced 6 months later. I was going to have another brain tumor. I was going to have an ADHD diagnosis. We were going to have COVID. The dog was going to die. I mean, there's just a rattling load of things that had happened since writing that and since reading it. But the same stuff still applies. When we let fear stand in our way, it curtails so much of our life. And midlife now brings us so many opportunities if we choose to shine the light, like Moomin does in the treasure chest, on the opportunities that we have. Because we have more opportunities now with the knowledge that we have than we did before. So whilst it can feel a bit doom and gloomy with the hot sweats and is it hot in here? And everyone's going, no, I'm bloody freezing. And you're like, I'm boiling. Or the irritability or the feeling like you're, not able to keep up with everybody else in the office because everybody's suddenly like 20 years ahead in speed of light in working things. That's all right. We've all got different experiences. This is your chapter. This is my chapter. Nobody gets to step into anyone else's world. This is our choice. And see it as an opportunity to springboard into the next chapter of excitement. So I'm doing this, and I'd love to know what you're going to do. So if you've loved what you've heard, I would really appreciate you subscribing, sharing it with your friends, family, colleagues, waifs and strays. They are all welcome here. You can click the subscribe button, and in the episode description there is going to be a link where you can get in touch with me, and I'm here for it. So get in touch. I would love to hear from you and see how I can help you.